Hi Neil, how are you?
Hi, Lisa. Very good. Yeah,
Good to
I'm
see you.
buzzing right now.
Oh, you're
Likewise.
buzzing. That makes me happy. Wonderful to see you. And hello to everyone who's watching and everyone who's watching on the replay. I'm Lisa. I'm founder of the Wentworth Collective, and I'm joined here today for the next episode of Collecting Thinking Live with Neil Tuson from Perfect Teams. And first of all, the Wentworth Collective is an event management consultancy, and we design exceptional experiences that have lasting impact. And we do that through the wonderful experts who we work with. And Neil is one of them. And I'm super excited that he's joining us here today. So first of all, I want to say
Me
thank you,
too.
Neil.
Thank you. Thank you.
We've known each other for, well, definitely over 5 years now.
Easily. Could be more.
Easily.
Could be more like 7.
Yes, I think so. And we met when I was at another organisation, and you were brought in to help galvanise the team and create. I was on the board with some other wonderful people, and you were there to make sure that we all worked in harmony. And I really, really enjoyed all of our conversations. And I love this subject because I love hearing how people work and how people tick. And I think there's a little bit of the type A personality in me. I know it's different how you establish them, that likes everything working in perfect order. So I'm really excited about the conversation that we're going to have today. You're a former engineer in marine engineering. You've sailed across the world. You've always been interested in personal development, and you've worked with a variety of organisations in a variety of sectors. You've had such a wonderful career today. I don't want to do it injustice. So will you just share with the audience a little bit about your career so far and what's brought you here today?
Gosh, well, I do remember Type A and Type B, so that goes back quite a while. My background was engineering, and when I finished my degree in Newcastle, I emigrated to the States, and I got a job as a sales engineer for a manufacturing company. And it reached a point where it wasn't my English charm that was going to win the day. It was how I presented myself. And to be quite honest, it went completely pear-shaped. The gig that I was there for, it wasn't the people I thought it was going to be. And even though we had the inside track it was a big engineering project, I just wanted the ground to open up and swallow me. And my boss came running up to me and said, "Neil, you've got to learn how to speak in public." And so I went away and I did a course. It was the infamous Dale Carnegie course. And I did learn how to speak in public. And I can remember making a presentation to an association about 3 months after it. My boss came running up to me after and said, "Why didn't you do that at Huntington Hospital?" And Lisa, I can remember the words coming out of my mouth. It wasn't that I couldn't. I'd never been shown how to. I was in my early 30s at the time, and I thought, I love this world of personal development. I was in California, it was sunny, the beach was there, and I went, personal development, this is the place to learn it. And so I left a big job, and I joined the world of Dale Carnegie and personal development. And over the last 30 years, I've soaked up everything I can, read as many books as I could. I've actually stopped reading personal development books now because I think I'm in the space where I can write them myself.
Yeah.
And I've just started creating, just bringing everything together, everything about teams, everything about people, everything about leadership. And that's kind of the crazy, weavy path that's brought me to this place in time.
Brilliant, thank you. And we're talking specifically today about perfect teams. And it would be remiss not to talk about how that's been affected during the pandemic as well, which we will talk about in this conversation. So much to talk about, but let's just start with a perfect team. What is a perfect team, and why is it so important?
Well, a perfect team quite often starts with the leader. And if the leader knows themselves and knows what floats their boat, what motivates them, if they know what their communication style is, what their learning style is, that is the starting point. And I've got a model that kind of categorizes which sort of character that one person would be. And then the leader's got to turn around and say, well, actually, I need other different characters in this equation. I mean, Richard Branson famously said, don't hire people like yourself. Get diversity into the equation. So it starts with the leader, and the leader's got to turn around and say to themselves, actually, I need to complement my style, my character, my characteristics with people that are going to challenge my style. So if you thought of it in three fundamental ways, you can have a head space, a thinking space, a heart space, which is an emotive space, and a gut instinctive space. If the leader primarily sits in one of those spaces, well, they need the other two in play. It's like the perfect team will have all three in play. They will have the head, the heart, and the gut. It won't just all be head. Is that making sense?
Yeah, and you need to have all. What you're saying then is that you need to have all three. I know we're going to go into this later, but you need to have all three: the head, the heart, and the thinking. What if you had everyone thinking with the head or everyone thinking with their guts?
Well, if it was all about the head, it would be very, very slow, and it would probably be quite a cynical and skeptical world. Because that's the last part of evolution, was the human cortex, the ability to process, and it's slow in comparison to the others. So it would, I think, classically think of a bureaucratic, monolithic organization that's heavily cognitive, and they prize intellectual intelligence above everything else. That would be a very slow, it's the proverbial super tanker that takes forever to turn around, because the thinking's just going boom. It would be very, very narrow. It would be a very the classic phrase is paralysis by analysis.
Yeah. So it's important to have balance. What about, for example, you've got like the people, you've got the balance of the head, the heart, and the thinking. What about if we talk about personalities? Like, I know when we worked together many years ago, there were lots of different personalities in the room, and it's the classic, I suppose, way that you distinguish people between extrovert and introvert as well. How does that affect the perfect team?
Yeah, well, my theory, my modeling has built on that stuff. So the introvert and the extrovert goes back to 1921, when Carl Jung wrote Psychology of Types. And that was the introduction to personality theory, as we call it nowadays. That was picked up by Myers-Briggs in the 40s. It was since been developed into DISC and Insights. All the profiles are out there, essentially are personality based. What Jung did introduce was the difference between introversion and extroversion. And Susan Cain says in her book, Quiet, subtitled The Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking, actually, we need to get back to an age of character instead of personality. So I actually tend not to talk about personality and personalities. I tend to talk about a person's character and characteristics. It's a subtle difference. The 1900s into the 2000s was the age of personality. Think of the big personalities out there that run roughshod through the world and through companies. Actually, Susan Cain says, let's get back to an age of character, where a person's intrinsic character mattered as opposed to that projected personality. So I actually...
Oh, sorry, go on. Sorry.
So I actually like to distinguish and differentiate what I'm doing away from personality, much more about person's character and the characters you have in play in the workplace.
And we'll talk about the characters in, as we go through this conversation, but can we just unpack that slightly, that point about characters and the difference between, that intrinsic, that what's deep rooted. Can you just explain that a little bit more, what that means?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things in play. So Jung introduced the idea of introversion and extroversion. And you could probably get a piece of paper and write down your own initials and all the initials of your team members. And straight away, if you were just to ask the question, are they introverted or extroverted, and start writing that down next to their initials, it will start to give you an insight into the complex that is your team. The next thing you've really got to get to grips with is the different ways in which people process information. So I'm going to give you an example. The way we process fundamentally comes back to the way the brain's developed. At the core of it is what's called the reptilian brain. Lee Child is quite a famous writer, talks about the lizard brain. Evolution's shown that we have this reptilian brain stem. That's pure instinct, friend or foe, fight or flight. People can act very instinctively. The next layer is what I call the mammalian part of the brain. It's about affiliation and relationship, commonly referred to as the heart, the emotion, it's the ambience and the atmosphere. And the last piece is the human cortex. That's the power of language, the power of analysis. It's what makes us human, but it slows things the heck down, and it's where the cynicism and skepticism sit. I was struggling with this about a year ago. I had a workshop with a whole bunch of PhDs. And I suddenly realized, I go for a walk every morning, and it's between two fields where there are horses and a pathway down the middle. And as I was walking down, I saw these horses, and I thought, do you know what? I've never met a skeptical horse. That's because they've only got a mammalian and reptilian brain. They don't have the human cortex.
Yeah.
All skepticism, cynicism sits here. Now, it's the power of the human. But let's take the three archetypes. Let's take a pure thinker, a pure heartfelt feeler, and a gut instinctive person. The three of them go to a restaurant. Is that restaurant experience going to be the same for each of them? No. The pure thinker, which I color code blue, by the way, the pure thinker, if they haven't already done the research online, will go up to the menu outside the restaurant and start reading it. They always start top left and they go down line by line by line, move over line, da, 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 da. It's analysis, 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 data, information, numbers, percentages, processing. The pure, heartfelt, emotive person, what I call the color code, the red person, they just breeze in, oh God, this looks good. They're sucking it all up. They're smelling it. They're looking around. They're admiring the decor. They're looking at the people. They want to know what's off a la carte. They're back behind in the kitchen talking to the chef. They see a friend. It's all to them. It's all about relationship and people. The waiter or the waitress comes up to take the order. They're never at the table. They open the menu up. It's all too much. They close right. Oh, I fancy that. All about sensory processing. The instinctive person's just marched in, sat down, looked at the menu if they're bothered yet, and sits there twiddling their thumbs, waiting for the others to catch up. Yeah? Three archetypes. And again, Jung introduced the idea of archetypes. The thinker, the feeler, the instinctive gut person. Think, feel, and go. The experience is all different. The truth is, as humans, we all do all three.
Right.
We just have preferences. Some people prefer to stay in the blue thinking. Some people prefer to stay in the red feeling. Some people prefer to stay in the green instinctive. All you got to do as a leader is tune into what's a person's preference.
Right.
And if you know if they're introverted or extroverted and you know what the preference is, you can cue in real quick to what's going to motivate them, what's their learning style, how you need to behave with them, etc., etc., etc. And that's what we do when we're bringing teams together. You get to learn to respect, because there are rules at play. None of them are any better than the others. They just bring different characteristics. If I want the strategy done, I'm going to give it to the thinkers. If I want the culture done, I'm going to give it to the red feelers. If I want direct action, I'm going to give it to the green instinctive people. When you have a perfect team, you've got all three in play and you've got the balance between introversion and extroversion, depending on what the team's function is.
That's brilliant. I love that. And I guess as well, it's about respecting.
Gotta respect.
Yeah.
The moment you judge one of them, and the thing is, they all do. The thinkers judge the feelers and the instinctive gut people. The gut people judge. The moment you get into that, you're getting into a disconnect, and you're not going to have a working viable. You're going to have a dysfunctional team. Yeah. It's about acknowledging where you yourself sit, and then acknowledging the other partners that you've got in your team, the other players that are coming and contributing, and getting respect.
And actually, they all work well together. It makes me think about when we run events, because when we run events, it will start with the idea. So you need that creative thinking. You need that blue sky, creative thinking to have a vision of a crazy idea, of an exceptional experience that we're going to create for our clients. And we'll map it out, it's usually, we'll map it out, all of our ideas. We're going to do this, we're going to have fireworks, whatever it's going to look like. And we'll land in a spot where we've got our vision of what it's going to look like. And once that vision has confirmed, we then need to implement that vision with people. So we need people to help us deliver it. And then also we need someone who's going to get us into line and get us organized and get into the detail. And we're working on a project at the moment, which is hugely creative. We're essentially producing a TV program, and because everything's going online. And the vision that we've got is incredible, and we're producing amazing stuff. But we have one project manager who is ensuring that every single detail is being followed and keeping everyone together. And in fact, it's like a well-oiled machine, because we couldn't run it without all of us in play. We all play our part and we all respect our role. So actually, when it gets into the detail, it's like, okay, well, you're going to be doing that. Or when it comes to creative, it's like, well, you're going to be doing that. So you respect those roles and responsibilities. So, in a mini world of a mini team, running an event is very similar, and about identifying that as well.
Yeah, and what happens is the instinctive pieces are all about the when and the where. It's kind of like very much about a direction. And the ready motive pieces end up correlating to the words why and who. It's about the people and why they're doing it. And then the implementers is in that thinking space. Well, what has to happen and how are we going to do that? And what are the tactics? What are the strategies? What are the processes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But you can get a sense, just intuitively, you can get a sense straight away that the thinking slows things down. I'll give you an example. What happens is, when we're kids, we learn the times table by rote. What's 2 times 2? Answer?
4. Gosh.
Okay. What's 3? Yeah. What's 3 times 3?
9.
Yeah. 4 times 4?
16.
Okay. What's 19? What's 19 times 27?
I don't know off the top of my head, Neil.
Bang. Now, if you want to have some fun, the answer is 513, by the way. But if you want to have some fun, walk down, and you've got any kids in your life, maybe grandchildren or your own kids if you're young enough, and you're walking down the street with a kid holding their hand, and you say to them, Josephine, what's 2 times 2? And they go 4. What's 3 times 3? And they go 9. What's 4 times 4? And they go 16. And then you ask them, what's 19 times 27? They will literally stop. They will be paralyzed by thinking. Yeah. They will literally stop dead in the street, and they will go, and you can see it, because thinking takes processing.
Yes.
Processing slows things down.
Yeah.
Now, you can be trained and you can make that instinctive, because there are people that learn their 27 times table or their 19 times table. There are people that are that good because they've instilled it. If you keep on repeating it, it goes into that instinctive gut realm. That's why when people I was in the Navy, we were trained instinctively to fight fires. There was no time to think about putting a fire out. You were trained to fight the fire. So a lot of people in the armed services know how to do things and work in dangerous situations instinctively because they've been trained for it. I was talking to Rory Underwood last week, who's a fantastic rugby player, and he's now got his own management consultancy business. He used to be in the RAF. He was a pilot. He said the difference between the forces and Civvy Street, which the rest of the world gets called, is that in the forces, you train 90% of the time. Flip that around when you come out into corporate world. You may be only trained for 10% of the time if you're lucky.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. So I think as well, just as we were talking about the different personalities and just building on what you're saying there, it might be useful now to have a look at, because from what you're saying is you need to respect the 3 zones, head, heart, thinking. And you have introverts and you have extroverts, but then you can also drill down even further, can't you? Into the
yeah.
Would it be helpful now if I shared the 12 characters?
Yeah. So what happens is, I'm an engineer by background, so I like to make things simple. If you actually play the permutations between the thinking, the feeling, and the instinctive, you can only get 6 combinations. You can be think, feel, or feel, gut, go. And then you throw introverted and extroverted over it. 6 times 2 is 12. And I thought, well, wouldn't it be fun to put all the characters around the clock face? And that's what we did. All the characters are numbered. They're all color coded. And so you've got 4 green characters, 4 red characters, and 4 blue characters. The green characters are instinctively predominant. The red characters are emotive and feeling dominant, and the blue characters are that last one, that's the head, that's the thinking space. So again, give the thinking to the blue people, give the culture to the red people, give the action and the direct stuff to the green people. And they've all got names, and so that all sits in the modeling when people actually do their full reports.
So I guess what would happen then is when you're working with organizations and you have a profiling test, you could see where the gaps are within your organization.
Yeah, I mean, I worked recently with an engineering company, which you would think would be blue, and it is. But at the board level, they've got blue, green, and red. So they've got a balanced board, so they are asking and answering all the questions. But some of the teams that they've got, and there was one in London, it was so heavily skewed towards the blue. They were very good at doing and delivering, but they weren't that good on actually going out and getting work. So they weren't good at creating the relationships. They weren't good at taking direct action. They weren't good at picking up the phone. They weren't that good at selling and making contact with people. So good on delivery, not so good at getting the business. Whereas another team had a couple of people that were in that green space. Actually, they were a 2 and a 3, which is the challenger and the go-getter. They were sitting there. And then they had a 4 who's very much about connecting with people. And then the rest were the blue. They were a well-balanced team because they had the green, the red, and the blue, and they were the best producing team in the business. So what happens is you start, where is the leader? Where is the rest of the team? And then you go, actually, what's missing?
Right.
So when I was actually working with you all those years ago, heavily blue, heavily red, not a lot of green in the equation. So Peter, your boss, brought me in because I'm heavily in that instinctive space. So he brought me in to help the business with the vision and to help himself create that vision.
Yeah.
Because quite often the vision does get, well, I mean, you got a spaceman on the wall behind you. So actually the classic scenario for this is Kennedy's man on the moon by the end of the decade. That is a visionary component that sits up in that green space. It's a where and when. This is where we're going. This is when we're going to get there. Short, punchy headline. But the moment you come out with that visionary statement, the other domains come into play. People immediately go, well, why are we doing this? Is there any idea who we got to get involved? And then you get the last lot that come in. Well, God, is there any idea what we're going to do? We haven't even put a satellite up yet. So dotting the I's and crossing the T's. You can already get that sense that the whole project is going to be slowed down. So green visionary people are always slowed down, governed and hampered by the red and the blue energies coming into play. But you've got to have all 3 in play. Yes. Kennedy, man on the moon by the end of the decade. Why? Well, to show the world that America was better than Russia, that capitalism was better than communism. As somebody told me recently at a presentation I did, actually the real reason was to bankrupt Russia, but they never got the PR and the press. But that, if you get the why right, people go with you. They will follow the leader. I've always said, and I think you've always said you really like it, no why, no way. The why sits in the red space. You could have the greatest thing since sliced bread sitting next door, Lisa, but if I don't know why it's important to me, I'm not going to get out my chair and go have a look. Tell me and convince me why it's relative to me. Get a deep sense of why and purpose in there. I'll walk over cut glass to John O'Groats to get there. Now, the why keeps people stuck to the task long after the initial inspiration's gone. Well, the initial inspiration for the space race was Kennedy, and we got assassinated in '63, but the people were behind the idea. The vision lived on. The why was strong enough, galvanizing purpose, kept people's nose, kept people focused on the end goal. The blue made it happen.
Yeah.
So you got to have the vision, you got to have the purpose. And where did the blue sit? It sat in mission control in Houston. And that was the scientists and the technocrats and the logicians and the researchers. They're the people. It's a slow, laborious process, but they eventually make it happen. The clock comes round from 8 to 9 to 10 to 11, bang, lift off. Yeah, so you've got to have all three in play.
I love that. I mean, I love that example because it's true. And I do always, I use it in my work now. Know why, no way. To know why you're doing it, but then knowing full well that even if you do have that why, you need the people to do it and you need the details. So you do need all of the people face.
I mean, the funny thing is, there's a chap out there that's made hay the last 15 years talking about why, what, and how. I won't mention his name. Everybody knows who he is. Start with the why, what, and how. Frankly, it's only half the equation. That's only 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. Half the equation. Why, what, and how? Fantastic. But if it's the wrong time, the wrong people, and the wrong direction, which is 1, 2, 3 through to 5, from 12 through to 5, if it's the wrong time, wrong direction, wrong people, it'll fall over. You've got to have all 6 in play. It's not about why, what, and how. You've got to have the where and the when and the who. Yeah,
and actually, I posted about that recently, about the great Rudyard Kipling poem about how you need to have 6 honest serving men.
Yes. It trips off the tongue. I have 6 honest serving men. They taught me all I knew. The names of what and why and when, how and where and who. And it's a famous journalistic framework. And if you actually put whatever the problem is in the middle and put the dice around it with the 6 sides, you get the complete answer. You'll never fail to solve the issue if you put that framework. And actually, it was Dave's collective thinking last time that really sparked the thought about the man on the moon. Man on the Moon by then decade. I think that was his passing thought.
Yeah, that's how he finished the conversation, because he basically said it's about having that fierce leadership, and it's similar to what you're saying now as well, Neil. That you need to have. It starts with a leader. It starts with that fierce, courageous, fearless leader at the front, but then it all trickles from there.
Yeah.
It also.
No, it doesn't mean to say the leader has to be green.
No.
Any one of those characters, any one of those numbers, you can have a person that sits number 8 that's very much a planner. If they put themselves in the space of being visionary and they put themselves in the where and when space, they can come up. The vision will happen. You don't have. Vision's not just about the people that naturally sit in the green in the green zone. The leader can actually sit anywhere around that clock face.
Okay. And it's about complementing all the other people and I suppose as the leader, recognizing where your gaps are.
Yeah, and so find out where you are and then look at your team and then say, okay, where are the gaps? But again, it depends if the team's fit for function. If you're in an internal audit department in the London Stock Exchange, you want a whole bunch of blue zone people. You want the 8s, the 9s, the 10s, and the 11s. You might want 1 green and 1 red, but you don't want all that maverick energy that quite often sits over in that green space in an internal audit function.
Yeah.
The team's fit for function. But if you wanted a wildly imaginative maverick team, you probably don't want too much blue in the equation, because the blue is going to slow it down. I mean, a classic, I did a lot of work with a big broker up in the city for many. I was the primary coach in there for probably 12 years, worked with loads and loads of people. And that organization was highly green with a bit of red. Buccaneering, go-getting energy. Who did they clash with? The Financial Services Authority. What was that? Heavily blue. So you can kind of see this culture clash that goes on. And typically the big clash is across the clock phase between 3 and 9. 3s are all boom, 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 let's get out there and make it happen. Well, you know this, go out there and make it happen. 9, analysis, paralysis, slow things down. The fact is, they get things done. It just takes time, and it's methodical, and it's logical, and it's methodical, and logical, and methodical. And it just will.
Yeah.
You can kind of you can already see the dynamic that goes on. Truth is, all 3 in play.
That's right. And what I was about to say, well, I mean, it'd be lovely if it was all rainbow and unicorns, and if you had the perfect team, and you had all those 12 characters around the clock face, everything's audited. Where can it go? Where can it go wrong? Like, where, you know, if you do have that, what's it that you have to look out for, even if you do have all those players in place?
Well, just get a sense. I mean, and a leader will get a sense of what's the team there for? What's the function of the team? Where is this team going? Yeah, if you're an engineering company and you're building a big bridge, you want to make sure the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. The Challenger space program, when they were using metric measurements instead of US imperial measurements, disaster. The rings were the wrong size, and it blew up. So you need to be able to make sure the I's dot the I's across the T's when you're dealing with things like that. If you're in an advertising space, it's probably off this world thinking. Let's go get. I mean, Dave's thing. Let's go. Impossible. Let's think the impossible. Let's get out there. Let's get way out the zone to bring it back. It's a completely different energy.
Yeah. And I know we've spoken about
the trick is to get the balance between the 3. That's the first trick.
And I know that we've spoken before about blind spots, like making sure that you're in your audit, you're looking. We spoke about the 3-legged stool.
Yeah, I mean that's the models I use are like a triangle with 3 sides, or a 3-legged stool. So you've got the think, the feel, and the go. 3 legs of the stool. If one of them's missing, the stool's going to fall over. So the first port of call always, and bring in, and it starts with the leader. Know who you are, know which one of those spaces you occupy, and then complement yourself with somebody from the other 2.
Yeah.
So the person that helped me develop all the algorithms and get all the coding right was heavily in the blue space. I'm actually naturally a very instinctive person. I can do that because I'm an engineer. I prefer not to because I'm lazy. So the inspiration, the vision, back it up with the process to make it happen, and then the red space is you go out and get the business. So for me, that's the piece that I'm looking for right now, is that red piece. Somebody that's going to front a house, go take it, go press the flesh and meet the people and open the doors. So you can anybody can look at themselves and go, actually, who do I need to complement me? In the methodology, it's quite easy. Go 4 each way. So you're a 3, find yourself a 7 and an 11. The 7 will be the discern and build the culture. The 11 will be the implementer. Go make it happen for you.
Yeah. So from what you're saying before as well, it ebbs and flows. So it changes with times, which actually works very well for my next question, which is talking about COVID. How has COVID affected your work, or put under the microscope about teams and how they're affected?
COVID's been interesting. The business got launched as COVID raised its ugly head. And what's happened is teams are now working virtually. And some HR people I've been talking to said, Neil, they said before COVID, managers were having a problem managing anyway. Imagine what it's like now that they haven't got them together, in the office. So actually working virtually is throwing up so many issues for managers and leaders. So what happened is people are looking to profile their teams and get a sense of what's the makeup, who's who in the zoo, who have I got, where am I? How do I need to communicate with these people? Because each of the characters likes to be communicated with differently. Each of the characters got different motivations. Each of the characters got different work styles. The real quick and easy one is introverted or extroverted. Guess which ones have the biggest problem working from home?
I don't need, well,
It's the extrovert. The extroverts are the ones that want to be around people. It's that social, they get their energy from other people. I was talking to an introvert last week. He said, I love it. I hope this carries on. I love working from home.
I know. I know. Unlike me that's speaking to like the postman when he comes over and everything.
Yeah, so I mean, the shorthand for introvert and extrovert, and Susan Cain really bigs up the introverts in her book, by the way. The big differentiator is, where do you get your energy from?
Yeah.
Extroverts get their energy from other people and the things around them. It's an external projection. Introverts get their energy internally. It's an introspective. So it's the inner versus the outer. Working from home is an inner activity. That's why the extroverts predominantly, not always, that's why the extroverts predominantly despise working from home. That's why they're crawling up the walls, wanting to get out the box.
So what can managers do, or what can leaders do to sort of, I know we spoke about this, to help and support their teams and the rich tapestry of people that they have in their organisation during COVID times, especially the second lockdown, for example? How can they galvanise them? How can they help them work together in a better way?
Well, in an ideal world for perfect teams, everybody would be signing up and profiling all the teams and getting their team maps. You don't have to do that, though. It's quite quick and simple. And we did it before. What's the difference between introversion and extroversion? What's the primary way of processing? That gives you a quick insight into the makeup of the team. If you've got somebody that's heavily internal and heavily about thinking, which are, it's the blue space. I mean, in the clock face earlier, that would be the 8s and the 9s. Those are the sorts of people that always asking the question, what? So they're going to delve down deep. They want to get to the bottom of things by asking what. If you know that, then they are quite often driven by security. So they want to be made to feel secure. They need to be given something to get their teeth into. It's all going to be about projects. The extroverted version of that is all about how and implementation. They need to have the ability to go out there and make it happen. So again, you start to tune into what are the motives underlying these different characters.
So from what you're saying then, if we go through what we've discussed so far, you've done your audit, you understand your people, where they sit within your organisation, you've made up your team by looking at your projects and what you need to do. At this time now, when we're in lockdown and we're trying to bring our teams together, you're looking at your teams and you're thinking, well, what motivates them? What do they need to make them feel secure or perform in the best way that they can? And I think we spoke about, last week, for example, social activity is really popular at the moment. And I know through my clients, I don't want to use the word networking, but team building and bringing people together. There are going to be some people who absolutely love it and need it, and some people who it's just, they don't really want to do that at all in terms of having a social on a Friday or a pub quiz or something like that. So from what I'm understanding, it's about understanding those different personalities and then how you can best serve them.
Yeah, so what I would do is, if I had a team, and I've got a couple of companies right now that are profiling their teams, I turn around to the managing director and I say, well, pick the right character that wants to build the culture and do the social stuff. It's, you know, back in my Navy days, it would be who's going to be your social secretary, who's going to be the person that's going to call up and organize the parties.
Yeah.
So in a company, who's your social secretary? And give it to the right person. Is that going to be an introverted thinker? Probably not. Is that going to be an extroverted feel person, red, heavily emotive, heart-led, about other people? Totally. So find yourself a 4 or a 5 round the clock face that really wants to actually build the culture, get people engaged, throw the party. In your previous company, you were an events company, and the predominant number of people were 10s and 5s, which is the makers and the lovers. Absolutely perfect for an events industry. Yeah, because they are gonna, they're, yeah, they got the logic and they got the feeling.
Yeah.
And they can flip between the two, and that's what you want. You want people-centric, process-centric people, front of house, and that's in my world, that's the 10s and the 5s.
Yeah. So before we sort of start wrapping up and, you know, answer any questions and, you know, before we close, I always like to give people, you know, an exercise to take away. If for the audience here, if they were trying to see where they sit round the clock face, what would be a quick, you know, obviously we'll give the links later for the profiling and how they can do that themselves, but what would be a quick and easy way for us to figure that out?
Well, the quick and easy way is to do the paper exercise. Write your own initials down, write your team's initials down, and then have 3 columns. Are they introverted or extroverted? And you write I or E next to each of the names. And then you go the next column. This is your primary way of processing. Are they primarily in that blue think space? Are they primarily in that red heart space? Or are they primarily in that green instinctive space? And you simply write down those letters T, G, or F next to their names. And then the next question you say was, which one do they use least? Now, for you, that's the blue think. For me, it's the red feel, which means the other one is your secondary, the one that's left. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if you were to do it, it would be L, J, E, G, F. T would be the one you use least. That tells you the space you're in, and there's a number codes attached to that, which you can actually get from the website quite quickly. That will tell you what your character is, and then you can start to see who you'll probably clash with, who you would gel with.
Yeah. And
that's a quick and easy way of doing it.
Presumably as well, when you're trying to balance the team and seeing what skill sets you need to deliver, you know, your project or your purpose and your vision, what you would need people to fill that gap, or where those gaps where you don't have that.
The classic I come across is if you actually go back to a triangle, where you've got the green, the blue, and the red. If the green's missing, there's probably a lack of urgency and lack of direction. If the blue's missing, there's a lack of process and systems, lack of logic. If the red's missing, there's a lack of culture, and you've probably got some people issues going on. So generally 2 out of the 3, there's generally, in every organization, there's a weak side of the triangle. Does that make sense?
Yes. No, absolutely.
So what you do is find out which 2 or 3 you're strong at, and then you go, actually, we need to attend to that one. Or we need to attend to that one. Or we need to attend to that one.
Yeah. So just sort of in closing remarks, what, you know, now in today's, you know, landscape, why is this more important than ever?
Well, because you can't have those conversations. You can't create those happy coincidences. You're not bumping into each other. You're not getting all the subtext that are going on. So therefore, people have to be able to create another conversation. And if you actually start by getting interested in, and I learned years ago, be genuinely interested in other people. It's one of the Dale Carnegie's mantras. Be genuinely interested in other people. And if managers start getting genuinely interested, Lisa, what is your preferred communication style? Lisa, what is your key motives? What motivates you? Lisa, how do you actually want to be communicated to? You start asking those questions, it creates the conversations. That's going to start helping the team gel and come together.
Yeah.
And just genuine. It's the coaching analogy. Create the space for the conversation. How many leaders and managers are creating the space for genuine conversations with the rest of the people in the team? You can have those genuine conversations when you know what makes them tick. If you actually find out what makes them tick, because you've actually got an insight, because they've actually gone on and you found out what their character style is, it gives you more, not ammunition, just gives you more information to work with, because now you're genuinely interested and you can tear down through the conversations. You know, just turn around. Oh, how are you today, Lisa? You just get that surface, don't you? No, what's really going on for you? No, okay, no, genuinely, what's going on? You kind of go down deeper and deeper and deeper. And the more managers do that, and the more they genuinely ask, and what else? What else? Slowly get down to the real essence, the truth. In coaching terms, years ago, I learned generally the first thing that comes out of a person's mouth is a lie. Yeah, how are you today? Oh, fine. Oh, really? Come on, truthful. Most, are you a manager that stays at the veneer at the surface, or are you a manager that dives down deep and gets to the genuine reality that people have? And the more interested you are as a leader and a manager, the more you're going to get. And somebody said to me very succinctly the other day, your team is only as good as the people. You know, the better the people, the more you know the people, the better the team. You know, it's not about bringing other people. Sometimes it's about coaching and coaxing the people you've already got. But you know what hidden talents you've got?
Yeah. And
Quite
prioritizing.
quite often people don't know the talents they've got.
Yeah. Like you were saying before, making space and making time to find out your teams and the gifts that they have and respecting their gifts.
Yeah, and each of the characters brings different gifts to the equation. If you want a maverick in the equation, get somebody like me in. You know, I'll throw those hand grenades into those conversations. If you want somebody that's going to be go-getting and make it happen and knock the doors and open up the opportunities, well, they're going to want somebody like you. If I want somebody that's going to plan and really fine-tune and make sure the process is in order, I'll get my IT guy involved. You start to appreciate the different gifts each of those characters brings to the equation. Find out what you got, and then say, actually, we need some more of that in the equation. Do we have it already? You've identified it, nurture it. Actually, we need to bring it in.
That's brilliant. That's probably a really good place to close there.
Well, thank you, Lisa.
Thank you. It was absolutely wonderful. Really, really interesting. And as I say, I could talk about this for hours. And I think now more than ever, we need to really find out who we're working with and not make any assumptions about what people are thinking and doing. And like you say, make the space. I know I tell you this all the time, I'm always quoting you. There are so many Neil Tuson quotes that I come out with, one of which is make the space to have the conversation. And no way. But where can people find out more, Neil?
Well, the website, perfectteams.co.uk, 2 T's between the perfect and the teams. There's a quick free indicator on there. So if you want to go in and have a play and find out which character you are, it's all there. That's for free. And that's it. perfectteams.co.uk.
Wonderful. I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, and thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate it. And thank you to everyone who's watched as well. And if you have any other questions, do post them in the comments and we'll be sure to answer them as well.
Well, thank you very much.
Thanks.